Welcome back to the Leadway Wealth Builders Podcast, episode 177. Today, we're going to be talking about how goals shape your actions. I am your host, Chris Rickenbaugh, and I am documenting my journey in real estate and business and also bringing on high-level investors to share their stories and how they built their businesses. You can follow me everywhere on Instagram and TikTok at chris.rickenbaugh. That's chris.REICHENBACH. And if you're listening to this podcast, the only way we can reach more people to be able to help them grow in their businesses, in their mindset, is to be able to like, share, and subscribe this podcast. So make sure you're sharing this. If you found it valuable, leave me a comment so that I can keep posting this comment and direct it more towards the listeners. So thank you so much for listening, and leave us a like and review and ask us questions to see what you would like me to be talking about on the podcast, as well as bringing on other investors. So let's get into the topic today. If you're not writing down your goals every single day, then you're kind of wandering around. And if you don't have the goals, then you don't really have a destination. So we want to really think about goals as a destination, because let's just say you hop in your car and you're driving down the road. You're just going to drive around. You don't have a destination until you put in the GPS, the actual coordinates of where you need to go. So for that GPS to be able to work, you need to have your destination in mind. You need to be able to put it down, whether it's to the McDonald's, Starbucks, that business center. That GPS is going to be able to then find you the route. So goals act in a lot of the same way, because when you throw your goal down on a piece of paper and you're really looking at it and you're writing it down every single day, you're able to see the actions you need to be able to take to get towards that goal. Let's just say, for example, my goal has been to, by the time I'm 27, I want to have $100,000 coming in per month. That has been a really big goal for us. And right now we're flipping houses. We're getting out of a bad partnership, and we're looking at how to be able to get to that goal. And we're looking at flipping houses saying, man, to be able to reach that goal, we're going to have to flip a ton of houses. We're going to have to wholesale a lot as well. So we would just have to take massive action. And we're looking at that going, it's not impossible, but for the level of how we would have to do that would be insane. Even like the high level investors we're networking with aren't doing that. So we're looking at it going, that's probably not going to work for us. You know, it's working for some people, and it took them a really long time to get there. It's not impossible. We're just going, hey, that's probably not going to work. So what that has done has shifted our mindset to be able to go, how would we make $100,000 a month? What does that look like? So being able to buy businesses, something that we can, have consistent income coming in and be able to grow with it and be able to really optimize that business. So something like the venues we're walking, they're not being operated at 100% capacity. It's like the one we were walking was operating at 10%. So we look at that and go, hey, we would be buying a job in this position, but our goal is to be able to start hiring right away. We know the systems and process to be able to implement to where that would take us out of the business and get this place booked up. Because even taking that one place who's going 10% occupancy, we would be able to take that to, 30 to 50% occupancy really quick by just saying yes. So that goal kind of shifts our mindset, because that business is doing $300,000 a year as is, and we would be able to come in and, let's just say that's 10%. So we would be able to almost 3x that and go from 300,000 to almost 600 to 800,000 in that business. And we looked at that going, that would solve all of these little money problems that we're kind of in right now with this fix and flip business. I mean, yes, we would be working a lot more, but it solves such a bigger issue by being able to go bigger. In the podcast I did with Gideon Spencer, he talks about this a lot. And what he talked about on the podcast is the 2-mile theory. So the 2-mile theory, for those who didn't listen to that episode, is that it's a lot harder to go 2 miles than it is to go 3 miles, because to be able to go 2 miles, you're putting on your shoes and you're probably going to end up walking there. But for 3 miles, it's a little bit farther and you're probably going to hop in your car. So to be able to walk 2 miles, it's probably going to take 30, 45 minutes. But to be able to hop in your car, it's going to take 5 minutes. So when you think about that on the business scale of how you're getting to your goals, if you have that really big goal, if you're setting your goal to be able to make $100,000 in a year, you're going to be lacing up your shoes and you're going to be putting in the work. And it's going to take you so much longer to be able to get there. Then, if you decided to be able to say, hey, I want to make $1 million this year, to where you're probably going to spend 4 to 6 months, finding that car to be able to get to that goal. And then it's going to take you a lot less time. So when I had that conversation with him, I think it secured a lot of the ideas that I was having. And then I was able to look at my goals and think, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I'm looking at on the board every day. How are we going to have a $20 million net worth by the time, or in 3 years' time? It's like, you're not going to do that by flipping houses unless you just do it on a massive scale. So being able to buy businesses to where you're buying into this business and it's valued on the occupancy, we could buy this venue for $3 million and easily increase this to 8 to 10 million in a shorter amount of time with a lot less work being put in. So it's not the easier, it's not the simpler route. It just makes sense in your brain. So, and what we're seeing in the real estate market is, it's getting kind of difficult. So if you don't have your money, secured, if you're trying to make money, it's not impossible. It's just a little bit more difficult. So being able to give yourself wrapping this back into how the goals are shaping your actions, you're typing into the GPS, which is writing down your goals every single day. That's giving you your destination of where you want to go. I highly recommend being able to write down your perfect day when money is not involved. What are you doing? When are you waking up? What are you eating? What are you doing throughout that entire day? What would be a perfect day if money wasn't involved and you could live and do whatever, drive whatever, and then you kind of backtrack from there and figure out how to be able to get there. So for somebody working in a W-2 job and you're saying, I want to sleep until 9, I want to be able to have a nice lunch at this time and spend time with family, and you're thinking, my W-2 job isn't going to be able to get me there. That's great. You have a destination and now you can figure out how to get to that goal. Or, you're just lame and say, that's not for me, and you give up. That's where a lot of people give up, but you can't do that. If you have that perfect day in mind, that's giving you the destination, and then the GPS is going to show you how to get there, whether that's through seminars, that's going to conferences, podcasts, books. All of those things are a part of that GPS path to be able to get you there. So I've done, 3 years of studying, and being able to finally write down the goals. I had a goal of being worth 10 million in 3 years. And I started looking at that goal in my mind. This was probably in the first 3 months, 2-3 months of writing down my goals. And I started looking at it going, I think that's possible. I can do that. My mind backtracked on how to be able to get there. So I bumped it up to 20, and that now feels impossible, to where, even if I miss, let's just say I come up short and go to 12. It's I'm still way farther than I was, but I had the destination in mind to be able to get to that point. So it's causing you to think way bigger. In the book, 10x is easier than 2x really documents this, because you're able to hit that 10x goal, and it's forcing you to think in a completely different way. So for some people listening to this going, he's out of his mind. He's not really thinking rationally. He should just keep doing what he's doing. This is the mindset of the really rich people and really successful people that I've talked to who aren't working W-2s. They're thinking so much bigger and so differently than anybody else I've met, to where they're saying, hey, it's way easier to make $1 million than it is to make 100,000. So that's the 10x thinking, that it's way easier to make $1 million than it is 100, because when you're making 100,000, you're trying to, 5% whatever you're making. So the next year you're trying to go to 105. Then you're trying to go to 110. And that's really cool if you get those promotions and you start making incrementally more money, but you're never going to be able to make $500,000 to $1 million in that job. So what avenues are going to be able to take you there? And that is not that job. So what that's doing in that mindset is it's forcing you to think so much bigger. And that's where I feel like we're at. So we are in a little bit of a hole right now, and we're battling through some things. However, we have that bigger goal in mind that we're writing down every single day that's going to be able to show us the path to be able to get there. And that's why I'm saying goals shape your actions, because you're able to see the path and the way to be able to get there. So to finish this podcast off, the action steps would be to be able to figure out what your perfect day is. And most of the time, people haven't ever done this. And that's actually how I met my wife. We talked about how, being able to have business goals and life goals is cool, but being able to, meet that perfect person, I was able to write that person down on a piece of paper. And what do you know? I ended up attracting that person and ended up meeting that person. So business goals and life goals are the same way. If you write down your perfect day, life is going to show you and give you the signs on how to be able to get there. So step number 1 is going to be write down your perfect day. Step number 2 is going to be able to write it down every single day, because eventually your mind is going to start working on that GPS path to be able to get to that destination. And then all you have to do is take action. So that's what I wanted to leave you with today. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Leadway Wealth Builders podcast. We're going to be having more guests coming up. And I think next week we might have a presentation that I've done for another mastermind community. So make sure you're tuning in. I think that's going to be on travel hacking. So it'll be a nice little change up, but thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Leadway Wealth Builders podcast with me, Chris Rickenbaugh, and I will see you on the next one.